Hello folks, this is NixOS 65 using Devenv on Ubuntu and Devenv's pain points. Devenv is rather hard to say. I have to say it a lot in this video, and I'm not very good at it. The two topics that I express in the title of this thing, using Devenv on Ubuntu and Devenv's pain points, they're logically unrelated, but I'm lazy and I wanted to make one video. So the pain points that Devenv has have nothing to do with Ubuntu and vice versa. But I am showing Devenv on Ubuntu, and I will talk about Devenv's pain points. Just FYI, a link to this talkie script, the thing that's entitled NixOS 65 over here, will be available in a link in the video description. Recently, a couple days ago, I made a video describing my use of Devenv, but I did it on NixOS. I don't think it was quite as useful as it could have been, and I'm going to make this video to show exactly how useful Devenv can be on not just NixOS but normal platforms. Devenv is a project by Domen Kozar that makes it possible to repeatably build and rebuild development environments. It is a wraparound Nix, which is a package manager, as well as a software repository of around 80,000 packages. Super useful. Because Devenv uses Nix, and because Nix itself is cross-platform, Devenv is actually useful on basically any Linux platform. We're going to use Ubuntu right now, but it would work on Fedora or basically any Linux that you have, including under WSL on Windows. And it also works on a Mac OS, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's pretty cool, right? While making my prior video was entertaining, I showed it, like the animal I am on NixOS instead of a normal platform, and I also showed it operating in a mode that's sort of contrary to the way that I think a normal person would use it, because it's not explained in his tutorial in Domen's tutorials. So in this video, I'd like to show you how to install Devenv on Ubuntu and spin up a Python development environment like a human being, not some NixOS animal. I will also separately discuss some of the shortcomings of Devenv and of Nix. It's not all roses. The first thing we have to do, and I apologize for this, it will get more entertaining. I have to show how to do this first before it gets this boring. But there's a command here we're going to use to install Nix on Ubuntu as a normal user here. So we have this curl command. And yes, it's a curl to bash. It's a curl to bash. Yeah, of course it is. Don't think about it too much. Okay, we have now successfully installed Nix, which means that if we open up another shell, we should have a Nix command. We do. We have a Nix command. Great. So this is not normally required for Nix, but Devenv is going to require it in the mode we're going to use it in. So we have to edit our via etc nix.conf file, and we have to add trusted users equals Chris M. Now, unless your name is Chris M, your username will be different. If it is Chris M, that's fine. You could just copy it. But if it's something else, put that in there. Now I have to, I'm sure there's a better way to do this. There's probably some service I can restart, but it's so fast to reboot that I just did that. So I'm just going to reboot now. You may want to do the same. Now that we're rebooted and relogged in, we have to do a few more commands here. I promise this will be done shortly. We have to install Cachix. The author of Devenv is also the proprietor of a binary caching service for Nix called Cachix, and there's an accompanying software package, and that is the package we're installing right now. Now that we've installed Cachix, we can tell Cachix to use the Devenv cache. This will make downloading things slightly faster for things that relate to Devenv. Final step is to actually install Devenv, which is done through this Nix install thing. Let's take a look at it. Nix profile install. Your guess is good as mine. I don't know what that means, but it installs Devenv. FYI, all the things that we did not have any effect on our host system other than putting files inside of a directory called /nix/store. We're not overwriting system libraries or any of that stuff. We are when we use Nix, we're basically in a sandbox on whatever system that we've installed Nix on. So we don't have to worry about that too much. In the last video, which I suggest you watch because it goes into a little bit more detail about like the why of Devenv, but I will give a short recap. The idea is that we would like to make it possible, if we're on a team of developers, for our entire team to share the same configuration of a development environment. And we would like one of those team members, or two, or whatever, depending on the size of your team, to be responsible for maintaining the code that generates that development environment. We don't want every developer to have to understand everything about Linux in order to write software for our project. We just want to tell them, hey, run this command. It will get your development environment going. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. In the last video, I created a Python development environment, which had a web app in it that depended on a Postgres database server. And in this video, I'm going to use the same application and the same configuration. I've changed things around slightly to appease the way that we're using Devenv, but it's exactly the same thing. We will get the same outcome, although we're running on an Ubuntu instead of NixOS. So in order to do that, now that I've installed Devenv, Devenv has a command called init, which I'm going to just cd to. Do I have a temporary directory? I'm just going to make a temporary directory. Temp. cd to temp. I'm going to make Devenv. I'm going to do Devenv init inside of here. And as you can see, it makes a few files that are related to Devenv in here. The most important two of which are, is that the way how you say that? The most important two files are devenv.nix and devenv.yaml. Nix and Devenv. YAML. Like that. And this is sort of the boilerplate stuff that we get from the template that Domen created. But I think if we do Devenv shell here, not the single quote. You probably noticed in the magic of video editing that I sped that up. It took a little bit. It took a couple minutes, well, maybe a minute, something like that. And you might be saying to yourself, hey, Chris, why are you selling us this garbage? This stuff takes forever. I can't believe that you would be fooled. You would be lulled into a sense of security by such a piece of shit. I am here to tell you, friends, that remember how I said that the things that this project is doing does not affect your host system. We are not using the Python that comes on your host system, nor the Postgres that comes on your host system. We're not interacting at all with your package manager. We are entirely downloading and installing new software into that thing called /nix/store. It has nothing to do with everything else on your system. So you just hold your horses, buddy. You just hold your horses. You're going to be right about it in a second, but not right now. So now that we've created this, we've invoked Devenv shell, which actually installs the software that we need, or at least most of the software that we need. We can run Devenv up, and I think this is just going to run like a hello program. In any case, this is just the default Devenv Nix and Devenv YAML that you would get if you ran Devenv init, which we did. It's not all that interesting. It's something that says hello to you and tells you. I guess it installs Git too. That's sort of interesting. But it's not an application. It is just a demonstration of how Devenv works. I created a slightly more interesting project using Devenv, and it is inside projects. It's inside projects. What do I do with it? Yes, it is inside here. It's just, yeah. So this is inside of my NixConfig directory. If you click on the link in the video description and then go down about, halfway through the page, you will see a link to where we're about to go to. And it is an application. It is a Python application. And it has some stuff in here that relates to Python, but then it also has some stuff in here that relates to Nix. In particular, it has the same devenv.nix that we just saw, and it has the same devenv YAML that we just saw. And I say it's the same. They serve the same purpose. They don't have the same contents. So we're going to see what those look like now. Projects, NixConfig, videos, Devenv, Ubuntu, my proj. Oof. Okay. So we are going to use the same pattern to invoke this project that we did in the thing that we just made in a temporary directory. It's the same thing. It's going to consult the devenv.nix and devenv.yaml files in this directory in order to build our Python project, download all its dependencies, get Postgres up and running. Oh, did I mention that? It's a Postgres thing. It's kind of a really dumb application. It just calls into a Postgres database using a select statement. It doesn't even query a table. It just gets the version number and then displays it on a web page. That's all this thing does. But we can get this thing going with a number of commands here. So devenv, just exactly like we did before, devenv shell. And just FYI, I am not going to go into detail about what this thing actually does. The last video, if you're really interested, goes into a bit of detail about this actual devenv.nix and its accompanying stuff. But basically, it starts a Postgres server. It starts a web app. Got it? Good. Devenv. Now that is, we're in the Devenv shell. Devenv up. Right. So now we can hopefully go to the web page for this application. And indeed, that is his entire job in life, to tell us what our Postgres version number is. Great web app. I am proud of myself. Thank you. So Again, if you want to go see these things, you can click on the link in the description, go to myproj, devenv.nix, devenv.yaml, see how those things work. But we can see that Devenv is pretty useful, right? Like, we got a bunch of stuff installed. We started a Postgres server. We started our web app. It ran on a port. Our database server is contactable, all that stuff. And we did it through 2 commands. And the general pattern to making changes to this thing would be to say, that's not where I wanted to be. Projects Nix config. Use Devenv Ubuntu approach. If we wanted to make a change to, oh boy, oh no, pure VI. Ooh, let's say we wanted to change something about our Postgres server. I'm not going to, but you can read it. You know, you'd go in there, you make change to it, and the only thing that your teammates need to do after you check that devenv.nix in, is you say to them, "Hey John, git pull, and go get out of your devenv and run devenv shell again." And he doesn't need to make any manual changes. He's unconcerned. He's unconcerned. Doesn't need to run Ansible or any of that crap. He's not working in a container. Doesn't have some VM running or anything. It's on his own machine. He's got his own tools. He's working in his own environment. And you just tell him, "Hey, John, git pull, run devenv shell again, devenv up. Okay, we're cool. All right." And that's the pattern. Rinse and repeat. All right. Okay. So now that you get some idea of how this thing works, that is how it works on Ubuntu. And if I had been more careful about how I wrote this devenv.nix file, it would be totally reasonable to also have someone be able to check this out on macOS, not on a virtual machine, just on macOS, and run the same set of commands. Even the installer works the same way. And they could use their Mac to develop the software as well, because Nix is cross-platform and because it has a bunch of Darwin stuff in it. It's not going to be true for everything. There's way better support for Linux in Nix, but they've done a surprisingly good job of trying to get parity as far as the number of packages supported on a Mac OS and how they work. So, right. Okay. All right. Now, in the largely unrelated part of this video, you've seen how it can be helpful to you on your Linux. I'm going to talk about some of the pain points. I'm joshing here, but there really are some pain points to using this. These aren't complaints, just realities. Only fix when people like you and me contribute to the project. So the first pain point is there is a long-lived Python rewrite branch, and Devenv is undergoing some heavy changes. It is it's under heavy development. It has this long-lived branch which fixes a bunch of existing issues, fixes like 20 of them or something. So the purpose of this branch is to rewrite most of this code that was previously written in shell in Python. And during that process, Domen actually took that opportunity to sort of troll through the bug list and say, okay, yeah, I see that bug here. I'm going to fix that in the Python branch, but it's unfixed in the master branch. So it fixes so many things that it turns out, for me anyway, I think it's a must use, but it's not finished and probably introduces some new bugs. There's no ETA for its completion, so it's sort of this middle ground. As an example of some of the pain that this causes, there is a feature of devenv.nix, at least for Python projects, where you can tell it to use a virtual environment if you are currently, like right now, as of this hour, who knows, it could be fixed in 2 seconds, who knows, uh, that virtual env feature doesn't seem to work on that branch of Devenv. So, you know, you have this dichotomy of one point, like it fixes all these bugs, but then it's also being worked on and breaks. So yeah, that's good times. There's another feature in either the master branch or the Python rewrite branch. You can say, I want to use Python, and I want everybody that installs this to be using Python 3.11.3 or 3.11.6 or 2 whatever, or, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't seen this work reliably at all. I haven't been able to uncomment this version number. It's taking whatever version of Python that I actually have as default on my system, I guess, or not default on my system. I shouldn't say that. It's not default. It has nothing to do with the host's Python. It is the default version of Python that ships in Nix packages, which is part of Nix. But in any case, if I uncomment this line under either the Python rewrite branch or the master, weird things happen. It's too complicated to explain here, but shared libraries don't resolve and weirdness happens. So that feature is under development. In my last video, we've seen how to use Devenv in this video in its normal mode, where we use Devenv shell, and it does all that stuff. Devenv up, etc. So there's a different mode that you can put it in, which I actually prefer. And my prior video went into how to use it in that mode, which is why I said that I'm not going to use it like an animal this time and show it how people would normally use it. But it is called flakes mode. And there's an alternate way to use Devenv where you don't have any YAML. The stuff that's in this YAML file basically sort of relates to the place that you want to get stuff from. Like URLs of hosts or of Nix packages that are required by Devenv. In the mode that I'm about to show you, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but I'm just going to try it. It's going to be Nix develop impure. And this is the equivalent of Devenv shell when this file called flake.nix exists. As a matter of fact, I think I need to add this flake.nix too. Yeah. Flake.nix. Pay no attention, man, behind the curtain. Nix develop impure. Sure. Why not? Of course I do. Yeah, definitely. And it's exactly the same as the other mode, except the YAML file, all the data that was in the YAML file now exists in a different format in this flake.nix file. And the benefit for that, for me, I'm glad it exists. Of course, probably not going to work. Right. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Yeah, Python rewrite branch is currently broken. So let's see if that works. Yeah, no. Oh yeah, I just got to get rid of this. This is just like Nix. Yep. Sorry. Let me get rid of these overlays. I'm going to re-enable those in a second. Oh no, it's just spare VI. Oh God. Oh. Mm. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm just going to disable these overlays, which will play a part in a subsequent portion of this video. But for now, they just gotta go. Yeah, I think that's what I need to do. Okay. Bastard. Take too many out. Leave too many in. Okay. This is doing exactly the same thing as we did before. I think it might be using a different branch of Nix packages. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. The point is that the stuff that was in the YAML file has now moved into this flake.nix file. And we don't need the YAML file anymore. It's not consulted. It's totally unused at this point. I like this mode because under the hood, actually what happens is the YAML that's in the devenv.yaml file is actually dynamically converted into one of these flake files that Devenv then uses. So I have this flake.nix file. It's quite scary looking, whatever, but it's pretty short. Doesn't need to do a heck of a lot. The benefit of is that I'm comfortable editing this flake.nix file. I am not comfortable trying to divine the linkage between the dynamic generation of a flake.nix file and YAML. It's just it just breaks my brain too much. The intent anyway is to make it more user friendly, to not have to have people think about this flake.nix file. I think it actually fails. I think it's actually more complicated to debug in the real world. So I prefer to have just a static flake.nix, as if, all the stuff that was in the YAML is now in that file, and I can just edit it. And yeah, good stuff. The other reason I like this mode is that I am not committing myself. If I start to use this in anger, if I start to use Devenv in anger, if I'm using the flakes mode, I'm not committing myself to getting in a place where I have to actually extend Devenv in order to get something done that I need to get done quickly. There are certain things that you need to do in flakes files that are just way easier to do if you can just edit the file rather than sort of edit the code that generates the file. So, yeah. So I'm going to use flakes mode for the foreseeable future. So this is where the pain point comes in. That's all great. I love that. I love that. I love that Domen made that possible. Currently, however, the normal mode and the flakes mode are not feature parity complete. Is that right? Is that how you say it? They're not. They don't have feature parity. And the flakes mode doesn't let you do anything with containers. The normal mode does. It lets you spin up a container and run a shell in it, and presumably it would let you run the tests in a container, and then presumably the golden goose would be to be able to push a button, have it generate a container, and push it in production. So currently that feature isn't implemented if you use flakes mode. So at the moment, if I want to use this in anger, I'm going to need to work on Devenv. I'm going to need to give Devenv the feature in flakes mode where it can do containers if I want containers. And I think I do. I think I want containers. So that's another thing. All right. I promise it'll be over soon. I'm done complaining after. Is this the last one? Yes, this is the last one. So currently, this is not a Devenv problem. This is actually a Nix problem. In the mode that I'm using it in, and really any mode that I'm going to use it in for the foreseeable future, there's an issue with build times. If you need to change something under the hood, this thing is sort of pulling Python from Nix packages, pulling Postgres from Nix packages, pulling all the support libraries, all like OpenSSL, all that stuff that's required to run those things from a repository that's on nixos.org. And you can, obviously, sometimes you need to compile things slightly differently, or you need to make changes to those things, or you need to use a certain different package, like a different Python package to support whatever you're trying to do. There are Python packages in Nix. And in order to do that, you can use a feature in Nix called overlays. Like you change the version of the software that you're trying to use for a certain given package. You can change like some packages, like the thing that I was trying to do was trying to use OpenSSL. And there is a way to pass OpenSSL a flag to say, hey, don't use the default configuration file for OpenSSL. Use this one. And mine in particular re-enabled TLS 1.0 because I have a customer that runs SQL Server 2008. Let's not talk about it. But when you do such a thing, when you make an overlay, sometimes, well, most of the time, almost all the time, what happens is that the dependent packages of the package that you've created an overlay for will need to be rebuilt because you've made a change to that derivation. That's, they don't really know whether they need to be recompiled or not, but if you made any change to it, it's going to get recompiled, more or less. So, in my case, what this meant in practice is because I needed to make this change to OpenSSL, I need to give it a different configuration file. This is actually sort of a shortcoming of the code that implements the build of OpenSSL in Nix. The change that I'm trying to make is just to point at a different configuration file. There's no API changes. It builds all the same way and everything. But the way that you do that, you have to give it this overlay. And when you give it this overlay, all those things, all the dependent things need to be recompiled. So this takes several hours on my computer. This can be mitigated with the use of like Cachix. Like I said, Domen runs this Cachix site. Maybe that's a secret plan. But it still takes several hours to build for the first time, and then you can upload the resulting derivation binaries to the cache, and then all your other teammates will then go ahead and get the cache versions. But it still takes quite some time to compile the thing, like 4 hours in my case, something like that. And takes several gigabytes of storage. And of course, every time somebody wants to go get the code, they're going to have to go get all these new derivations out of cache. So in this case, in this OpenSSL thing, I think it's just factored badly. This change is trivial. It shouldn't require recompilation of all its dependents. It really shouldn't. There's like 400 of them or something. I should just be able to do something like you could do in Geeks with its graphs and tell Geeks is another Nix-like operating system. You can say, hey, yes, I made a change to this derivation. However, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. You just tell, well, I'm noting that I made the change to it. It does not warrant recompilation of all its dependents. And there's a feature in NixOS called System Replace Runtime Dependencies that would let me do exactly just this. But Devenv isn't based on NixOS. It's based on Nix, and it does not have this feature. And it's just maddening that it doesn't have this feature, because it really is. It belongs down in the next layer. It does not belong at the NixOS layer. This particular thing may be a bit of a showstopper for me to use Devenv, because I don't think I have the requisite NixFoo to replace runtime dependencies outside the context of NixOS. So, okay. I'm sure all that was super understandable and relatable. You know how it is. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.